Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here, and thanks so much for joining me for another video. In today's video, we are going to be creating a shadow box card, and this was designed by design team member Torico using new products from our January 2018 release, and I am going to recreate this card in today's video. Now, I have never made a shadow box card, so I was really excited to get to create this. So the first thing I did is I cut out the cardstock pieces that we're going to need. So I have 2 pieces of blue cardstock. So both of my blue panels measure 4 1/4 by 6 3/4 inches, and I'm putting them into my scoring tool to add some scoring lines to each end. So I'm scoring them at 1 1/4 inch, and I'm doing this on both ends of the blue panel on both pieces. This is what we're going to use to create the box of our card. Once I have the 2 blue panels done, I'm also going to add score lines to the 2 tan strips of cardstock. So these ones here measure 5 inches long, and then one of them is 3/4 inches tall and one is 1/2 inch tall. And I'm going to add a score line on each end of these just like we did to the blue panels, but for these ones here, I'm going to score in at 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to do this on both ends of both of these pieces. And these are what we're going to use to create the inside area of the shadow box that we're going to adhere our little images to. So once I have all of the lines scored, I'm done with the scoring board, so I'm just going to set that aside, and we're going to do a little bit of die cutting in one of the blue panels. So I have my inside and outside stitch square stacks, and I'm going to use the second largest from this set, and I'm going to die cut a window opening into one of the blue panels. So I'm going to position the square in the middle area, so in between the 2 score lines and top to bottom. I want to kind of make it as centered as possible, and then I'm just going to run this through my die cutting machine. And that's going to leave me with a window opening on this panel, and because I use the inside and outside stitch squares, I have the stitch detail around that window opening. Now I want to create the background panel on the other blue cardstock panel, so I have a piece of pattern paper from the Dots and Stripes Confection, and I just went ahead and trimmed that down to size so that it will fit on the inside of that other panel, which is 4 1/4 inches square. Before I start to assemble the card, I just want to go through all of the pieces here and do all of the folding and creasing and really make sure I have a nice creased edge. And then you can see those pieces will work together to create that box when we get to that point. Now before we assemble anything, we do need to make sure we have the pattern paper adhered on the inside of that second panel. So I'm just using some tape adhesive and I'm adding that directly inside of there. And then we can start to assemble the inner portion of the card. So the first thing we need to do is we need to join the 2 blue pieces together so that it's one complete piece. So I added some adhesive onto one of those end panels, and then I just laid the other one directly on top to adhere it together. And you can see how nicely it all kind of folds up when we have it all adhered. Now to create the little steps on the inside, that's what I'm going to call them. They are just the little pieces that are going to run along the bottom of the inside of the shadow box, and they're going to allow us to add some images to give us that fun dimension on the inside. So I'm using score tape to adhere these on just because it's a really nice strong adhesive, and I want to make sure that the end pieces there where we've added the score lines are completely covered in adhesive so that they stay adhered down onto the inside of the card. So I'm taking the taller one first, and I'm taking the edge with the score tape, and I'm adhering that right onto that little panel piece there. So you can see I kind of attached it on there, and it will fold over. And then I'm going to take the smaller one and do the exact same thing. So I'm just adding that on right beside the larger one with a little bit of space. And I'm just going to press down really well to make sure that those are adhered. And then I'm going to lay these little strips completely flat and fold over the other part of the blue panel directly on top of those to adhere those in place. So I did remove the adhesive backing, and then I folded that blue piece over and it completely adhered to the other end of the tan strips. And now we have these little steps on the inside of our box, and this is going to give us somewhere to adhere our images to. So I am using the In Paris stamp set, and I've already went ahead and stamped and die cut and colored a few images from this set to create my scene. So I am going to create a scene a little bit different than Torico's. I did kind of change up the elements that I added to mine. And what I'm going to do is start to adhere these to the inside of this card. So you don't want to adhere the whole thing closed yet. You want to add all of your images first. So the first thing I'm doing is putting all of the images that I want in the very background on first. So I'm adhering these directly to that pink stripe panel in the back. And for that hot air balloon, I will end up moving that down a tiny bit because I felt like it really wasn't that visible once we closed the card and added the sentiment on there. So now I'm moving on to the images that I want on those two little steps there. So I'm making sure to only put adhesive at the very bottom. You don't want to have adhesive on the back area of the images that aren't being attached to the little tan piece because they will stick to the background when you close the card. And you just want to keep in mind as you're adding your images to the scene that you are kind of layering stuff over top of each other. So you want to have it so that you can kind of see the images in behind the other images. So you don't want to have anything super layered over top of one another, especially tall things in the front that are going to cover anything in the background. So I'm just adding the bicycle on here now, and that's going to be the last image in our little scene. And you can see this great dimension that we've created by having this fun shadow box. So now that I have all the images in there, I just added adhesive to the other end of this little blue panel, and I am just kind of closing that box completely by adhering that down. And I love the final card we end up with. I have never made one of these. I mentioned that earlier, and I think I'm definitely hooked. I love the overall look of this. I love the dimension, and I love that you can still close it as a regular card, which I will show you in just a minute here. So before we get to that, I do need to add my sentiment. So I have a sentiment strip that I've cut out of white cardstock, and I just stamped the sentiment onto there with black ink. Now Torico used a red strip with white heat embossing. I decided to change it up a bit and just have a white strip since I didn't really use any red in my design. So now I have the sentiment on there, and I just have the card now in an envelope because I wanted to show you that one, it does fit into a regular envelope, and it completely folds down to go into that envelope, but it pops right back up as soon as you remove it. So it's a great card design that fits in a normal standard envelope, so it's easy to mail, and it just has a lot of fun dimension. So thanks so much to Torico for creating this card that we could recreate. I had so much fun with it, and I really hope you guys will give it a try. Thank you so much for joining us for our release class videos, and I will see you in another video soon.